Welcome to the curious case. It's a quiet night, and I'm glad you're here. Tell me, do you prefer the hush of falling snow or the soft drum of rain? Your answers always bring this little corner to life. Set your cup down, breathe in the steam, and let the evening begin. Now pour your tea, settle back, and listen closely. Tonight, a new mystery waits behind the quiet door of a village home. The clock struck 9. A soft rain whispered against the panes. Miss Marple folded her newspaper and looked toward the window. Outside, Street Mary Mead lay still. Chimneys breathed faint threads of smoke. The sound of dripping eaves filled the silence. She poured another cup of tea. Steam rose, carrying the scent of bergamot. It was the sort of evening when small things mattered. Letters, lamps, the shuffle of slippers. And yet, something tugged at her thoughts. There had been a note that morning, delivered by hand. No sender's name, no address, just the words, urgent, help required. She had read it twice before folding it neatly into her pocket. Now, as the fire murmured in the grate, she took it out again. The handwriting was uncertain, slanted to the left. Anxious. The message had been brief. Please come to Rosebank House, tonight, if you can. Something terrible has happened. She reached for her shawl. Her instincts, so often correct, refused to be quiet. Rosebank House. The name was familiar. A lane beyond the vicarage. Empty for years until, recently, someone moved in. She rang for Griselda's boy, who sometimes ran errands. He arrived, damp and curious. Yes, miss? Fetch a cab, if you please. The driver will know Rosebank House. He blinked. At this hour? At once, she said. By the time the cab rattled to the gate, the rain had slowed to mist. Miss Marple stepped inside, her small figure brisk beneath the umbrella. The driver turned in his seat. Long way out, miss. Bad road. Shall I wait? You'd better, she said. Something tells me I won't be long. The wheels churned through the muddy track. The hedges were high, the lamps few. When at last the cab drew up, Rosebank House loomed from the fog. Not large, not poor. Windows shuttered, gate half open. Miss Marple paid the driver and approached the door. The bell rope was cold to the touch. No answer came. She tried again. Still nothing. Her ear caught a faint sound, metal against metal, somewhere within. She turned the handle. Unlocked. She stepped inside. The hall smelled of polish and damp air. A clock ticked. Steady. Loud. Too loud. Hello? Her voice seemed to vanish before reaching the stairs. No reply. Her shoes left soft prints on the tiled floor. The air was heavy with an odd scent. Not gas. Not dust. Something faintly sweet. She moved toward the drawing-room door. Her hand brushed the brass knob. Warm. Someone had touched it not long ago. The door creaked open. Dark curtains. A chair turned toward the fire. A single lamp burned low beside it, and beside the lamp something white. A folded handkerchief. Miss Marple stood very still. The silence pressed closer. She felt it, the weight of something unfinished, something watching. Her eyes moved once, slowly, across the room. Then she saw the teacup. It sat on the small table by the chair, half full, steam gone. Miss Marple's fingers tightened on her umbrella. Her heart beat once, heavy, deliberate. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. But something felt wrong. The next morning came quietly. Light rain tapped against the kitchen window. Miss Marple stirred her tea and replayed each detail from Rosebank House. The unlocked door, the warm doorknob, the single cup. No host, no note, no voice calling out. She needed facts, concrete ones. So she put on her coat and stepped outside. The air smelled of damp leaves. Her shoes pressed into the wet gravel with a soft crunch. She chose a simple path. Start with gossip. In villages, gossip was as reliable as any ledger. It carried errors, yes, but also truths, carefully wrapped in whispers. Mrs. Finch stood by her gate trimming roses. She looked up the moment she saw Miss Marple. Out early, aren't you? Miss Marple nodded. Did you hear anything odd last night? Mrs. Finch paused. Her shears clicked once. Odd? Depends what you call odd. Someone was walking up the lane past 10, light footsteps. Quick ones. Not from our side. Could it have been someone going toward Rosebank House? Mrs.? Finch's lips tightened. Could have. No one goes there usually. Strange place now. That new tenant keeps to herself. Miss Marple held the question in her mind. New tenant. Kept to herself. A note delivered with no name. She thanked Mrs. Finch and moved on. 2 houses down, old Mr. Carr stepped out with his milk crate. He squinted at her. Morning, Miss Marple. You're up and about early. You heard anything last night? A dog barking, he said. Not mine, not the vicar's. Came from far off. Sharp bark, like it saw something it didn't trust. A dog bark. A quick set of footsteps. A silent house. Pieces. Small ones. But pieces all the same. At the post office, the bell chimed. Mrs. Durrant was sorting envelopes. Miss Marple approached with a gentle tone. I had a rather unusual evening, she said. I visited Rosebank House. Mrs. Durrant froze mid-sort. You went there? Just for a moment. You shouldn't, Mrs. Durrant whispered. She's been in some trouble. There were letters last week. Thick ones. London postmarks. She seemed nervous. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Did she collect a letter yesterday? Mrs. Durrant checked the log. Her finger stopped on a line. She did. 5 o'clock. Signed with her initials. Face pale as a bedsheet, if you ask me. Did she say anything? One thing, Mrs. Durrant murmured. She said, if he writes again, I won't answer. I can't. Then she left. Miss Marple stood still. The pieces shifted. A frightened tenant. A letter from London. A late-night visitor. A teacup left waiting. She walked back outside. The rain had eased. A faint smell of wet earth rose from the lane. She paused under the elm tree. Her mind traced each fact, each sound, each word. Then she felt it. A single thread pulling the wrong way through the pattern. Someone had lied. Someone had hidden something important. Miss Marple looked up. Something didn't fit. Miss Marple walked toward the small green. The grass glistened with morning damp. A blackbird pecked near the path. Its quick taps echoed softly in the quiet air. Mrs. Aldridge stood by the bench, folding laundry into a basket. She noticed Miss Marple at once. You're out early, dear, she said. Her voice held curiosity, not warmth. Miss Marple nodded. I'm looking into a small matter. Something unsettled me last night. Mrs. Aldridge raised an eyebrow. That house again? Rosebank? Yes, Miss Marple said. You seem to know something about it. The woman exhaled slowly. My niece delivers groceries there. Says the tenant barely opens the door. Takes the bags with one hand. Keeps her face half hidden. As if she's expecting someone. Or avoiding someone. Miss Marple let the words settle. Has she mentioned any visitors? One, Mrs. Aldridge replied. A man, middle-aged, dark coat, arrived 3 nights ago, stayed only 10 minutes. Niece said the woman's hands were shaking when she signed the slip. A visitor. A short visit. Shaking hands. Did the niece describe him? Only this, Mrs. Aldridge said. He kept looking at the lane, like he didn't want to be seen. And when he left, he walked, didn't drive. And fast. Miss Marple's fingers tightened around her handbag. Did the tenant say anything? A single line. My niece heard it through the crack in the door. Mrs. Aldridge lowered her voice. She said, I told you not to come here. Miss Marple's mind began to thread the details. A secret visitor, a frightened tenant, letters from London, a house unlocked. Anything else? Miss Marple whispered. Mrs. Aldridge hesitated. There was something strange in the rubbish bin yesterday. My niece noticed it. A torn envelope, London postmark, no return address, and inside, only one word left. What word? Mrs. Aldridge swallowed. Tomorrow. Miss Marple felt a quiet shift inside her thoughts. Tomorrow. A promise. A threat. A warning. The meaning depended on who wrote it. Did your niece keep the scrap? She did, Mrs. Aldridge said. She didn't know whether to bring it to the constable. Said it felt private, personal, wrong to touch. Miss Marple considered each syllable. Someone didn't want the letter kept. Someone didn't want the message known. She looked toward Rosebank House. The windows stayed still, curtains drawn, silence heavy, too heavy. A visitor no one recognized. Footsteps in the rain. A teacup waiting. Miss Marple breathed in the scent of wet linen from the basket. She felt the pattern forming again. Thin strands, but enough to begin. She turned back to Mrs. Aldridge. Her voice was gentle, her eyes alert. How interesting. Miss Marple walked toward the bakery. Warm bread scented the air. A simple smell, steady and calm, perfect for loosening tight tongues. Mrs. Hopley stood outside with her shopping bag. She spotted Miss Marple instantly. Morning, dear. You've heard, haven't you? Miss Marple gave a mild smile. I've heard a little. Not enough. Mrs. Hopley leaned closer. That woman at Rosebank isn't right. I saw her yesterday. She came out for milk. Only milk. No bread. No. Meat. No matches. Just milk. She looked over her shoulder twice before stepping back inside. Miss Marple kept her tone neutral. Fear? Fear, Mrs. Hopley whispered. And guilt, if you ask me. Miss Marple let the words rest. Did she speak to anyone? No. She paid with coins. Exact change. Hand shook. Bottle nearly fell. Miss Marple thanked her and moved toward the greengrocer's stall. Inside, Tom Pritchard wiped apples with a cloth. He nodded to her. Miss Marple. Morning. Busy day? Quiet so far. She kept her voice soft. Did you deliver anything to Rosebank this week? Tom paused. Yes. Yesterday. A crate of potatoes and onions. She ordered them last week. She answered the door? Halfway, Tom said. She kept the chain on, eyes red. She looked like she hadn't slept. Miss Marple studied him gently. And did she seem afraid? Tom shook his head. No, miss. Not afraid. Just tired. Worn. Down. Like someone carrying a heavy secret. But she wasn't shaking. Not a bit. Hands steady as mine. Miss Marple tilted her head. Tired, but not shaking. No shake, Tom said firmly. She even asked me if the post had come early. She said she was expecting a reply. A reply to what? Tom shrugged. Didn't say. Only that she hoped it would come before evening. Looked relieved when I told her the postboy was running late. Miss Marple absorbed his details. 2 scenes, 2 tones, both vivid, both confident. Mrs. Hopley saw a frightened woman. Shaking hands, eyes darting, guilt pressing hard. Tom saw a tired woman. Steady hands. Someone waiting for a message. Someone almost hopeful. Miss Marple felt the conflict twist in her thoughts. Fear or hope. Guilt or waiting. Shaking or steady. If both accounts were true, the woman had changed suddenly. If one was false, then someone was hiding something. Miss Marple stepped away from the stall. The smell of apples followed her sharp and clean. But the stories behind her tangled like threads. 2 witnesses, 2 halves, 1 truth missing. She looked down the lane toward Rosebank House. Curtain still drawn, door still shut. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. But both stories couldn't be true. Miss Marple returned home before noon. The house was quiet. Only the soft tick of her mantel clock filled the room. A steady sound, calm, predictable. She set her umbrella aside and sat near the table. She placed 3 things before her, a folded note, a small sketch of the teacup she had seen, and a rough outline of the window at Rosebank House. 3 objects, 3 pieces, all pointing in one direction. She unfolded the note first. The anonymous message from the previous morning. A simple plea. Something terrible has happened. But there had been no name, no signature, no explanation. Anonymous notes were never harmless. They carried fear pressed into ink. And fear always left marks. She touched the sketch teacup next. She remembered its position exactly, on the small table beside the chair. Half full, not cold, not warm, just wrong. A cup left halfway, tea abandoned mid-sip. Not something people did without cause. People finished their cups, or left them untouched. But half full meant interruption. A sudden one. She moved to the window sketch. A simple outline. A latch marked with an X. Inside she wrote one word. Loose. She thought of the warm doorknob. Someone had been inside moments before she arrived. Not hours. Moments. She tapped the pencil against the sketch. The sound clicked in the quiet room. Sharp. Precise. A warm doorknob. An abandoned cup. An unlocked door. A window latch that didn't sit straight. She held each fact separately. Then together. Then in sequence. Someone had left in a hurry. Someone hadn't planned to stay. Someone had been inside that house long enough to drink tea, but not long enough to finish it. Someone knew she would arrive, or hoped she wouldn't. She thought of Mrs. Hopley's frightened woman, then Tom's steady-handed tenant. 2 versions. One before the letter, one after the letter. A change, a sudden one. Letters could do that. Good ones, and dangerous ones. Miss Marple leaned back. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, in memory. She had seen this pattern before. Someone hiding behind silence. Someone trying to leave a message without speaking. Someone trapped between fear and hope. She pressed her fingertips together. The room stayed still. Only the clock ticked on. Her mind settled on one quiet truth. A truth shaped like a whisper. She had seen this before in St. Mary Me. Miss Marple walked to the station road. Constable Turner stood outside the shed, writing in his notebook. His pencil scratched softly against the page, a steady, dry sound. He looked up as she approached. "Morning, Miss Marple. Something you need?" "Yes," she said. "I would like you to accompany me to Rosebank House. There are details I must check." Turner hesitated. "That place again?" She nodded once. "It won't take long." He followed her along the lane. Mud clung to their shoes. The air smelled faintly of wet bark. When they reached the gate, Turner tested the latch. "Still unlocked," he muttered. Miss Marple stepped inside. The hallway was dim. The same faint sweetness drifted through the air. Turner sniffed. "Perfume?" "Not quite," Miss Marple murmured. She listened. The house made no sound, no creak, no breath. She led him to the drawing room. He glanced around. "No sign of trouble," he said. Miss Marple shook her head. "Trouble hides inside details, Constable. Let us look closely." Her eyes went to the table. The teacup remained where she remembered it, half full, untouched since last night. Turner bent over it. "Strange to leave it like that," he said. "Yes," she replied. "People rarely walk away from warm tea. They finish it, or never pour it." She moved to the chair. She touched the armrest lightly. Cold now, but she remembered the warmth of the doorknob. Someone had been here after the tea cooled, someone who didn't stay long. Turner stepped toward the window. "The latch is loose," he said. As the postmistress claimed, Miss Marple approached him. "Loose, yes," she said. "But look at the angle." She pointed at the hinge. A thin fiber clung to the wood. Turner leaned in. "A thread?" "No," Miss Marple said. "A frayed end of string." Turner frowned. He checked the floor, then the frame, then the outside edge. "There's no string here," he said. "Not now," Miss Marple replied. "Someone removed it. Recently." Turner scratched his head. Why would anyone tie up a window? "To hold it closed," Miss Marple said softly. "From the outside." Turner blinked. "Outside? That's not possible." "It is," she said. "If someone looped the string from the inside first, then climbed out, then pulled it tight from the garden." Turner stared at her. "You think someone escaped through here?" "I think someone left quickly," she said, and wanted the room to appear undisturbed. She touched the hinge again. The frayed fiber caught against her fingertip. It told a story no villager had mentioned. A silent story. A rushed story. A story that contradicted both earlier versions. The frightened woman. The calm woman. Neither had spoken of a tied window, but the window remembered. Miss Marple stepped back, her voice lowered. The air stayed still. Something had been tied from outside. Miss Marple did not return home. Instead, she walked straight to the vicarage lane. The air carried a faint smell of chimney smoke. A simple smell. Old, familiar. A motor car stood near the gate. Dark grey. London plates. Someone new. Someone unexpected. Mrs. Clement opened the door before Miss Marple could knock. Her face looked tense. "Jane, you have a visitor. Well, not for you exactly, but he's here asking questions." Miss Marple stepped inside. A man waited near the fire, tall, tired eyes, neatly pressed coat. He held his hat with both hands, twisting it slowly. He turned as Miss Marple entered. "Forgive the intrusion," he said. His voice held strain. "My name is Mr. Rowan." Miss Marple tilted her head. "From London?" "Yes," he whispered. "Bloomsbury. The same postmark as the letter. The same place mentioned by Mrs. Durrant." "Mrs." Clement excused herself quietly, leaving them alone. Mr. Rowan sank into a stiff chair. His breath shook. Miss Marple sat opposite him. She said nothing. Silence, she knew, opened doors better than questions. He spoke first. "I knew the woman at Rosebank House." His fingers tightened on the hat. "Brim. We were close once." Miss Marple let him continue. "She left London suddenly," he said. "No warning. No explanation. She only wrote once. A short note. Said she needed peace. Needed distance." "From whom?" Miss Marple asked softly. "From me," Rowan admitted. "But not for the reason you think. We weren't lovers. We were friends. Old friends. She trusted me. Told me things she didn't tell others. Someone frightened her. Someone she had tried to avoid." Miss Marple felt the thread tighten. "Someone from London?" "Yes," Rowan said. "A man. Older. Controlling. She worked under him for a year. He kept visiting her flat. Kept offering help. Money. Promises. And she refused. She refused everything," Rowan said. "She said he watched her. Followed her. She believed he'd learned something about her inheritance. She didn't trust him. Not after he appeared at her door late one night." Miss Marple folded her hands. "And you came here why?" Rowan swallowed. "She sent me a letter last week. Said she finally found proof, and she wanted me to see it." "What proof?" "She never wrote again. The next message I received was one word. Tomorrow." Miss Marple felt the small shift in her chest. A warning, a promise, a signal meant for someone safe. Rowan leaned forward. "Tell me, is she all right?" Miss Marple did not answer. Not yet. She looked at the man carefully. His fear was real, his devotion gentle. He hadn't come for money. He hadn't come for attention. He had come because something in the past still bound him to her. Miss Marple spoke at last. "Mr. Rowan, fear changes people. It changes their faces, their voices, their choices." He nodded slowly. "I know." She looked toward the door, toward the shadow of Rosebank House in her mind, toward the window with the frayed string. Her voice became a whisper, measured, certain. Sometimes fear wears the face of love. Inspector Graves arrived just after noon. His boots carried the sharp smell of wet leather. A single sensory note. Strong, clear. He met Miss Marple outside the vicarage. "You've been busy," he said. Miss Marple gave a gentle nod. "There are questions that need steadier hands than mine." Graves opened his notebook. "Let's start with the visitor. Rowan. Claims he knew the tenant." "He did," Miss Marple said. "His worry is genuine." Graves grunted. "We'll see." They walked together toward Rosebank House. Rowan followed a few steps behind, silent, strained. The lane glistened with leftover rain. At the house, Graves turned on Rowan sharply. "You say you arrived at 9?" "Yes," Rowan answered. "Just before the lamps were lit." Graves narrowed his eyes. "Describe the house." "Quiet," Rowan said. No lights in the drawing room, only a faint glow from the hallway. Miss Marple listened, quietly, thoughtfully. "And the door?" Graves asked. "Locked," Rowan replied. "I knocked twice. No answer. I left after a minute." Graves scribbled something. "Strange. Miss Marple found it unlocked." Rowan stiffened. "It wasn't unlocked when I came." Miss Marple studied his face. Calm, sincere, not defensive. Graves continued. "You didn't see anyone on the lane?" "No," Rowan said. "I came quickly, left quickly. I didn't want to disturb the neighbors." "Time?" Graves pressed. "A little after 9. Miss Marple's fingers folded together, her thoughts tightened. Graves asked again, "And you swear the hallway light was on?" "Yes," Rowan said. "A single lamp. Weak. I remember it clearly." Miss Marple raised her head slightly. "Mr. Rowan," she said softly, "were you certain it was 9? Rowan blinked. "Yes. I checked my watch." "Your watch," Miss Marple echoed, "not the house clock." Graves frowned at her. "What are you getting at?" Miss Marple moved toward the drawing-room doorway. She spoke carefully. "When I entered last night, the fire still held warmth. The doorknob, too. But the teacup had lost most of its heat. Only one thing did not match the scene." Graves stepped closer. "What didn't match?" Miss Marple's eyes rested on the mantel, on the old brass clock, its hands frozen at a precise minute. "The clock," she said. "It stopped at 8:40. Rowan inhaled sharply. "That's impossible. I was here after 9. Miss Marple shook her head. "No. You believed it was after 9, but you came earlier than you thought. Your watch may have been slow, or the house clock stopped when something—" She paused. Her voice lowered. Interrupted the room. Rowan stared at her. Graves stared too. Miss Marple looked once more at the frozen hands. Unmoving. Silent. Unpredictable. Someone had lied about the time. Someone had counted on no one checking the clock. Someone had depended on confusion. She touched the mantel lightly. Dust shifted under her fingertip. Her whisper carried the weight of the turning point. Yet the clock said otherwise. Miss Marple stood very still. The room held one clear scent, warm ash from the dying fire. Soft, fading. Davis would have lowered his voice here. Slow, measured, letting each fact settle before the next one appeared. Miss Marple did the same in her mind. She gathered the fragments, one by one, quietly, carefully. Fact 1, the clock on the mantel. Stopped at 8:40. Not broken, not jammed. Simply stopped. Stopped because something jolted the room. Something sudden. Fact 2, the warm doorknob. Still warm when she arrived. Someone had left shortly before her. Seconds, not minutes. The warmth told the truth. Metal never lied. Fact 3, the window latch. Loose, but not naturally loose. A frayed thread showed an intentional tie. A makeshift fastening. Someone climbed out, not in. Someone wanted the room to appear untouched. She closed her eyes. Let the 3 facts breathe. Stopped clock. Warm knob. Tied window. Alone, they were harmless. Together, they formed a line. She opened her eyes. The line sharpened. Someone had been in this room at 8:40. Someone alive. Drinking tea. Sitting in the chair. Someone expecting a visitor. Or a message. Then something happened. Something that forced them to leave fast. Not through the front. Through the window. Where no one would see. Why? Miss Marple stepped closer to the chair. Her hand brushed the fabric. Cold now. Still neat. Still straight. No signs of a struggle. Not fear. A decision. A fast one. She looked at the teacup. Half full. Not spilled. Not knocked over. The person left deliberately. Left calmly until the last second. Then rushed. Her mind turned to the letter. The one word inside. Tomorrow. A. Signal. A warning. A promise. Someone knew something would happen. Someone was preparing. She pictured Rowan arriving early, seeing the faint hallway lamp, seeing no movement, finding the door locked. leaving before the true moment. He hadn't seen the real event. He had missed it entirely. His time was wrong. The room's time was right. 8:40. The moment everything changed. Miss Marple inhaled. The scent of ash sharpened her focus. A simple smell, but a clear one. Her thoughts shifted. Pieces slid into place. The window, the letter, the visitor, the shifting stories. Someone wasn't escaping danger. Someone was hiding evidence. Someone had arranged the scene to mislead the village, but had forgotten one thing: clocks hold memories. Miss Marple felt the quiet click of understanding, a soft, internal sound. Certain, complete. She finally saw the pattern. Miss Marple waited until evening. The village was quiet. A single scent drifted through the air. Burnt wood from a nearby hearth. Sharp, distinct. She walked toward the post office. Mrs. Durant was closing up. Keys jingled softly in her hand. "Just in time, Miss Marple," she said. "You needed something?" Miss Marple stepped inside. "I need a word with your nephew," she said. "The boy who delivers the late letters." "Mrs." Durant stiffened. "He's in the back." "Why?" "There is something he saw," Miss Marple replied, "and something he didn't understand." The nephew entered slowly, cheeks flushed, hands in pockets. He avoided her eyes. Miss Marple spoke gently. "You delivered a letter to Rosebank House yesterday, around 8. The boy nodded. "Yes, miss." "You didn't mention that earlier," she said. He hesitated. "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters," she said. "Tell me exactly what you saw." The boy shifted. "I knocked on the door. No one answered. I was turning to leave, and then I heard a sound." "What sound?" "A window latch," he whispered. "A quick snap, like someone shutting it hard." Miss Marple nodded. "And then?" "A woman stepped into the hall," he said. "But she wasn't the tenant. Different hair, different height. She looked at me, then looked at the letter." Mrs. Durant gasped, but she said nothing. The boy continued. "She opened the door, took the letter, and shut it fast." Miss Marple leaned forward. "Did you see her face clearly?" "Not clearly," he admitted, "but there was something wrong. She kept glancing at the clock on the wall, over and over." Miss Marple's voice dropped. "A clock that stopped at 8:40. The boy stared. "It stopped?" "She kept looking at it like she was waiting for it to move." Miss Marple breathed in the faint scent of burnt wood. It grounded her thoughts. One more connection, another thread tightening. She turned to Mrs. Durant. "Your nephew described a woman who didn't belong in that house, a woman who entered through the window, a woman who took the letter meant for the tenant." Mrs. Durant whispered, "Then where is the tenant?" Miss Marple didn't answer yet. Not until she finished the line of logic. She tied the window from outside. She arranged the room. She left the teacup half full to suggest a sudden departure. She wanted time to freeze at 8:40. Mrs. Durant trembled. "But why?" Miss Marple looked at the boy. "You saw her fear, but it was not fear for herself." The boy swallowed. "She seemed desperate." "Desperate people hide truths," Miss Marple said. "Dangerous people hide evidence." Mrs. Durant stepped back. "You believe she harmed her?" Miss Marple shook her head. "No. I believe someone else forced her hand. Someone watched her every move. Someone expected a letter. Someone waited for proof." The room stilled. No one spoke. Only the faint echo of the closing shutters moved the air. Miss Marple's voice dropped to a final whisper. The silence spoke first. Miss Marple found Mr. Rowan waiting near the village green. Evening fog drifted low across the grass. A faint smell of damp soil rose with it. Soft, earthy, heavy. Rowan stepped forward when he saw her. "You've learned something," he said. His voice shook, not with fear, with certainty. Miss Marple nodded. "There is someone you must speak to," she said. "Someone who holds the truth, or the part of it she dared to keep." Rowan followed her toward the small stony path behind the vicarage. There, beneath the old elm, stood the tenant of Rosebank House. A thin woman, hands clasped tight, eyes red from sleepless nights. She looked up as they approached, her breath caught. "Rowan, you came." He took a single step forward. "I came because you wrote to me, because you asked me to." She closed her eyes. Pain flickered across her face. "Then I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have asked. It wasn't safe." Miss Marple waited. The woman's shoulders trembled. Not from cold, from carrying too much. Rowan spoke first. "What happened? Why leave London? Why hide here?" The woman sank to the low stone bench. Her hands shook now, but with release, not fear. "I didn't leave to escape him," she said. "I left to stop him." Miss Marple remained silent. The woman continued. "He wasn't chasing me for affection. He was chasing me for something else. The inheritance file. He said I had signed something I never saw, that I owed him more than I could repay, that he could fix things if I cooperated." Rowan's jaw tightened. "You never told me this." "I couldn't," she said. "You always believed the best in people. I couldn't bring that darkness into your life." She wiped her eyes. "But when I found proof he forged the documents, everything changed. I knew he'd come for me, or send someone. I panicked. I wrote to you. I wanted someone safe to hold the evidence." Miss Marple spoke gently, and then the letter arrived. The woman nodded. The one word, tomorrow. He meant he was coming. I knew I had only that night to hide what mattered. Rowan stepped closer. "You staged the room." "Yes," she whispered. "I tied the window. I left the teacup. I timed the clock. I wanted anyone who entered to believe I'd been taken, or fled." Miss Marple folded her hands. "You were imprisoning yourself," she said softly, "hiding behind a story you created, a story built on fear." The woman looked at her, tears gathered. "I didn't know what else to do." Miss Marple met her gaze. Her voice was steady. "Certain. Control is its own prison." The woman covered her face and cried. Not from guilt, from release. Rowan knelt beside her. He took her hand. She didn't resist. "That man won't reach you now," Miss Marple said. "But we still need the last truth. The one you hid even from yourself." The woman lowered her hands. Her breath shook. "The truth is, I was afraid he'd hurt you, Rowan. Not me. You." Rowan froze. Miss Marple watched the moment settle between them. A quiet moment. Heavy. Final. The woman whispered, "I couldn't risk losing the only person who ever stood by me." The fog thickened around them. No one spoke. Not even Miss Marple. The confession hung in the air like a held breath. Inspector Graves arrived just after dusk. The faint scent of damp wool rose from his coat, a single sensory note. Simple. Clear. He joined Miss Marple on the narrow path by the elm. The tenant and Rowan waited nearby with quiet relief in their faces. Graves opened his notebook. His tone stayed firm. "Start from the beginning, Miss Marple." She nodded. "Everything turned on the timing," she said. "The stopped clock. 8:40. The moment." The room changed. Graves tapped his pencil. "And the window?" "Tied from outside," she replied. "Someone climbed out and pulled the string tight. A staged exit. A false disturbance. Why? To make us believe she was taken, or fled in fear." Graves looked toward the tenant. "You planned the scene?" She nodded. "I had to hide the proof. If he reached me, everything would be lost." Miss Marple continued calmly. "The warm doorknob told the truth. Someone left moments before I arrived. The teacup told the other truth. It wasn't dropped. It wasn't cold. It was set down deliberately." Graves wrote quickly. "So she wasn't running." "No," Miss Marple said. "She was preparing. She left the room arranged to mislead anyone who came looking. A careful pattern." Graves exhaled. "And the letter from London?" "The trigger," Miss Marple said. "A warning. One word. Tomorrow." She understood what it meant. She acted before he could. Graves closed his notebook. "You pieced all this from a cup, a clock, and a window." Miss Marple gave a small smile. "People lie. Objects don't. They tell the sequence." They show intention. They hold the quiet details others overlook. Graves nodded slowly. You knew before anyone else. Miss Marple looked toward the dark outline of Rosebank House. The air smelled faintly of wet grass. Still, honest. She wanted us to think she vanished, Miss Marple said. But she never left. Not truly. She hid the truth in plain sight. And every clue pointed back to the same moment. Graves waited. What moment was that? Miss Marple answered softly. She was right from the first cup. Morning came gently. Light slipped across Miss Marple's small kitchen table. The steam from her teacup drifted upward in a slow, steady ribbon, a quiet sensory note. Warm. Simple. She rested her hands around the cup. Not for heat, for thought. People, she knew, rarely acted from a single reason. Fear mixed with hope mixed with guilt, and guilt often hid behind silence. The tenant at Rosebank House had carried all three: fear of the man who once controlled her, hope that Rowan would understand, guilt for the choices she made to protect him. Miss Marple lifted the cup. The steam softened her thoughts. Human nature, she reflected, rarely followed a straight line. It twisted. It hesitated. It disguised itself when cornered. And sometimes it built a prison from the very things meant to offer safety. Rowan had not seen that. The tenant had not understood it. But the pattern was clear now. Miss Marple set the cup down gently. The quiet tap of porcelain on wood settled the room. Some truths rushed forward. Others took their time. And some waited patiently, hidden behind small clues. Her voice fell to a whisper, measured, certain. Truth cools slower than tea. Davis returns with a soft breath. A quiet rustle of pages settles behind him. One gentle sound. Warm. Well, he says, another mystery has walked its careful path tonight. He pauses. His tone lowers. Tell me, which clue gave it away for you? Was it the window, the clock, or would you have trusted the cup of tea on that small table? A small smile follows. You always notice more than you admit. He closes his notebook. Slow, steady. Rest well, dear listener. Tomorrow, another kettle will boil. Davis's voice softens again. A faint tap of his teacup touches the air. One small sound. Light. Before you go, he murmurs, let me leave you with a whisper. He leans closer, calm, measured. One quiet lane, one missing letter, one truth waiting. He lets the words settle. Slow, deep. A doorstep, a shadow, a name. No one spoke aloud. He pauses, long enough to pull the listener forward. Come back soon. The next mystery is already moving. Davis lowers his voice. Soft, steady. A tiny clink of his spoon touches the air. If tonight's story warmed your curiosity, he whispers. Drop a teacup emoji below. He pauses, just enough to let the silence glow. The algorithm loves mystery, he adds gently, and so do we. The moment lingers, inviting. Davis speaks one last time, soft, warm. A quiet clock tick lifts through the room. Every village has its secrets, he says, but tea and truth always find their way to the surface. He lets the thought rest. Still, simple. The clock ticks once more, then fades into gentle silence.